So if you remember my last video, I basically went over the Photoshop basics, Photoshop Dummies for 101, right? I try to include as much as I knew about the most common things we would be using in this class, say like the file, edit, image, layer, right? But anyway, I forgot to mention a little bit more about image quality, and I thought it'd be great if I did a little separate video to talk about the different types of file formats you could save your Photoshop file as, and how that will typically affect the quality of the image for purposes other than if you were to post on social media. So let's open up a file, new file right now. And as you'll remember, this big boy here, you'll see that it has the width and the size of the document you want. You can name it, resolution, and color mode. Now back to the color mode. As you can see, with CMYK, the image size is 48.1 M. Whereas if you were to do RGB, it drops down to 36. And the reason for this is with RGB color, you're using less color profiles, meaning you're using less types of colors. And Photoshop doesn't have to like stress out to try to calculate those colors. And so obviously the image size is going to be smaller. To the right of this little drop down button is this option called bits. And that will also affect your file size. And you can see there's some options here. You have 8-bit, 16-bit, and 32-bit. Now, for the purpose of digital painting, you will never have to use more than 8-bit. So the reason people have 16-bit and 32-bit is for photography editing purposes, in where maybe they want the color transitions, the little pixel transitions, to be much smoother and much tighter than for digital painting. And that's going to also increase file size, obviously, 72. But it also allows them to make heavier edits with, say, if they're going to go into Liquify and like change up things, and then they're going to add in some filters, add in some lens, and do all these kind of things. If they edit too much on 8-bit, you're going to start losing some of that crisp quality. And so that's why they need to go higher in bit. But for digital painting, we never really do such heavy editing work because we're painting by hand. So honestly, 8-bit's going to work for our purposes, right? And so you can also save this preset so you'll never have to do it again. And then you'll get to save like the type, right? Anyway. So I have this file open right now where I'm going to use this file that I created back in the way for Huion sponsorship. And I'm just going to use this to show you the different options of things you can save your Photoshop file as. And so we're going to just press Ctrl-Shift-S to do save as, right? And as you can see, it'll let you choose your file name. You can make it as dumb as you want. It could be let's go boop boop. Or you can do something serious where you'll actually know what you're talking about, right? And so as save as type, you have a lot of different options. I will be honest, I use about like 3% of all these options. So let me show you the most common ones that I find will be useful for you as an artist when you're trying to post your images, your artwork online, print your artwork, send it off to a print shop or whatever, you know, or send it to a client even. And so the first one is Photoshop file. Obviously, this is a Photoshop file. It allows you to do all the edits, keeps all your layers and adjustments and everything. And it will only open up in Photoshop. It can't open up in any other program just because it's specific to Photoshop. The next file format that I typically use most common is JPEG. And JPEG, as we all know, is like every single image you can see on Google. It's just your typical digital image format. It's relatively small in file size, really easy to send on email. And I think a lot of print shops will accept JPEGs when you're asking it to print, specifically if you're not asking to print in like huge sizes or anything. The other file format that I typically also use is Photoshop PDF. So with Photoshop PDF, you're gonna get this little window here. It's gonna give you all these different options. Don't worry, I typically just deal with these two. And so if you want to be able to go back and edit your stuff in Photoshop after you saved it as like a PDF, then you press this option. But typically, if you're saving it as a PDF, I can't imagine that you're trying to go back and fix things. So I just keep this checked off so your computer doesn't have to like render more things to try to create a file that also includes this option, right? And optimize for fast web preview is always a pretty good option, especially if you just want people to be able to open it up and not have to download it into their computer. And then I don't touch these other options just because I feel like if I mess with it too much, it'll end up doing weird things, right? Permissions, use a password. Like, why do I need a password to open my document? It's not like secret agent stuff, right? So anyway, it'll just save us like a regular PDF file and all that jazz. Now the final one that I typically use, let's do save as. Wheels on the bus go round and round. All right, let's just pretend it's called Wheels on the Bus. And I will talk about PNG. So PNGs are slightly bigger than JPEG because they keep more of the color little pixels, right? So what's the great thing about PNG that differs from JPEG is that it allows you to have transparent background. So let me just turn off these backgrounds. Why do I have so many background things? All right, so it's a clean old background. It's transparent, and you know it's transparent because it has these checkerboards. If it weren't transparent, it would look like this. So this is transparent. So let's pretend we want to save this as a PNG. Beep, beep. Let's just call it that. All right. And it's going to pop up this little window here. Asks you whether you want to compress. And so if you select none / fast, then Photoshop is not going to compress any of these pixels into a smaller file size. So it's obviously going to be fast because it doesn't have to do any work. It's just like, woo, just immediately send it off. Now, if you choose smallest / slow, the file size will get smaller and it will reduce the amount of pixels here so that your web browser and when you're sending emails, it is able to handle it, right? But that also means Photoshop has to work a little bit. It has to put some elbow grease, so it's obviously going to be a little slow. And so we're going to do some compression because that's typically how you want to save it. And you see right here, this progress bar, it's going to let you know how long it's taking to do a particular action that you told it to do. And so if anytime you don't want to do it, you just press this X button and be like, oh, sorry, psych, I messed up. I did not want to save this. Please stop. And so we're at 94% right here. Okay, I saved you the wait. I basically cut ahead to after that 94% finally loaded. So we're gonna open up my files and you can see right here, we got a PNG, right? And so you can see the background is basically transparent. And so it will allow you to treat this like a vector. So let me show you how you would be able to see that on Photoshop or even add that into Photoshop. So on Photoshop with PNGs, you think it'd be easy to add it in by just doing copy and paste, right? But if you do that, it's going to automatically convert the PNG into a JPEG and you're going to end up with a solid white background. So as such, one of the ways to bypass this is you download that image into your computer and you're going to press right here, place embedded. And we're just going to go scroll, and we found it. And so it's going to place down your image actually as a PNG, right? Let's move it out so you can actually see it. See, it looks like a PNG. And that means you can, if you're afraid to mess up things, you can always save your main top part as a PNG and then plop it back down once you got the background done or whatnot. Or if you wanted to take a character that you've already made in your past work and just plop it down in a different environment and mess around with the color profiles, you can do that, right? Which is the great thing about these things. And so the thing is, you'll see here that there's like this little corner here, and that means you cannot paint on it. This is a smart object. It treats it as like a whole entity. And so if you wanted to paint on it or mess around with it after you've placed it into your Photoshop file, you gotta press rasterize layer. And it's gonna turn this layer back into a regular painting layer. And then in which case, then you're able to say, I want to put a big old sunglasses on her, right? Now I can do that. the messiest sunglasses you'll ever see, but hey, that's how you do it. All right. And then final thoughts for image quality, I would just say that there is a slight difference between canvas size and image size. Canvas size, as you can tell, it just refers to the overall canvas size that you have on Photoshop. And so right here, it will show you that it's 3,799, right? If you change these dimensions, it does not change the number of pixels you have, I believe. And so, whereas if you change image size, let's say we want it to 5,000. It's gonna increase the size of the actual image, meaning it'll also increase the canvas size, but it's also gonna try to keep this in account. So you're gonna have 300 for each kind of like 300 pixels per inch, right? And there's some math that's involved to convert pixels into inches, but why do the math yourself if Photoshop can do it for you, right? So if you want to know how big this image is going to be able to print to when you're working in Photoshop, the easiest way is to just drop it into inches, or if you're the rest of the world and not the US, drop it down into cms. And so it's going to tell me that this image is going to fit at most a 16 by 22 inch type of paper. And if I print any bigger, I'm going to lose quality. It's going to look fuzzy. You can either print smaller, but not bigger. That's what it means. Now, if you don't press resample here, you're going to run into some problems. Like if you change your resolution, it's going to increase the size of your image, but the quality is going to go down. So I would say, just as a safe bet, whenever you want to change your image size or resolution, just keep this button checked. It'll make life a lot easier if you're trying to find out, what did I do wrong? Why does it look fuzzy? It's probably because you didn't have this checked and you were messing around too much with it, right? And so image quality, such an important thing, especially in this age of digital media. We want to ensure that when we're printing things out, our eyes aren't distracted by how blurry are those pixelations, right? We don't want to see those fuzzy edges, especially if we're trying to create this crisp kind of look, this crisp digital media look. And so it's super important for you to always make sure you're making the considerations to ensure that your DPIs are correct, you're using the right canvas size, you're not working too big, but also not working too small, so your image doesn't look super fuzzy. And so I just hope that was helpful for you for when you want to start posting your work from this class on your own social media. And I want you to be able to post some good work on there, right? I want you to tag me and I want to be able to see it crystal clear as much as possible as Instagram will allow it, because Instagram, it's gotta decrease those file qualities because it just can't handle all those millions of images, right? So let's not give Instagram an even blurrier photo by doing bad pictures for ourselves, and then Instagram degrades that quality also, right? Anyway, I'm just rambling now. Okay, see you in the next video.